All right, and with that, I am going to pass it over to Wendy Cleveland with Sound Credit Union to get us started. Thanks so much, Wendy.
Thanks, Carmen. Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Wendy Cleveland. I'm Chief Operations Officer at Sound Credit Union in Tacoma, Washington. And I'm so glad to see so many of you here. Along with my dear friend Sheila Finley, just a shameless plug, we are restarting a sister society in Western Washington. And I know there are a lot of other sister societies represented here. So, little activity to kick us off. Raise your hand, your virtual or your physical hand, if you lead a sister society. Lead, co-lead. Okay, keep those hands up. Now raise your hand if you are a Global Women's Leadership Network member. Page dues, yay you, keep them all raised. Now, if you aren't a member yet, but you've attended a sister society function before today, raise your hand. Look at all these highly engaged women. I'm just going to say, what a demonstration of the value that Global Women's Leadership Network and the sister societies provide. If you're a guest, if this is your first time, welcome. We are so glad to have you here. You can all lower your hands now. Thank you for playing along with me. Just real quickly, for those of you who may not be familiar, if this is your first time, the Global Women's Leadership Network actually turns 50 this year. Very exciting milestone. Global Women's is affiliated with the World Council of Credit Unions, and the mission is to provide women with the opportunity and resources to make a measurable difference in the lives of each other, of our credit union members, and our communities. And sister societies, kind of like your local chapters of Go West, are local groups of Global Women Leadership Network members, it's a mouthful, and their guests who carry out that mission by offering networking and professional development like what we have today. So thank you. I think we have all of our 6 states from Global Women's represented here today. As Carmen mentioned, we are going to start with a panel, and we have some really esteemed panelists here today. I am excited to hear from them, and I know all of you are as well. This is why we're here, right? Thank you to our panelists for volunteering their time to speak with us today. I'd like to start by asking our panelists to introduce themselves. If you can share with us your current title, role, and how you are involved with Global Women's. Let's start with Sandra.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Sandra Sagehorn-Elliott, and I am the CEO at Vantage West Credit Union in Tucson, Arizona. And I joined Global Women's Leadership a number of years ago, and just enjoy kind of keeping up with what's going on around the world with women in our movement. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sandra. Martha.
I don't think Martha's going to be able to join us, right? She's in Netherlands.
Yeah, apologies. So Martha actually is in Norway, checking out the Northern Lights. So we had a little bit of a scheduling mishap. So it will be just Susan and Sandra.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, Susan, would you like to?
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Mitchell. I'm the CEO of Mitchell Stankovic and Associates, and I've had the lovely opportunity of being with Global Women's Leadership Network since its inception. So 15, 16 years ago, you're looking at a person that was part of the movement, and I'm excited to be here, see all of my old friends, new friends, and to talk about what's happening in the world today. So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very excited.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sandra, both of you for being here. And I must say, I'm jealous of Martha right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So we do have a few sister society leaders that will be posing their questions to our two panelists. First, we have Leah Friedenberg, Senior Vice President of Organizational Development for Pima Federal Credit Union in Arizona. We also have Heather Bianchini, I hope I said that correctly, Digital Manager at Unitas Community Credit Union in Portland, Oregon, and Ning Duong, COO at Credit Union West in Arizona. So thank you, ladies, for your assistance today. Leah, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you again to our panelists for being with us. So as credit union female leaders, what's the best support that you've received from another colleague in the credit union movement? And what was it that made it so impactful to you?
So Sarah, you want to kick off? Or Sandra? Sorry.
Sure. Well, I know a group of people, men and women, who are senior leaders across the industry that I've encountered over the years. And when I was applying for this position and going through the recruiting process, they were just incredible. They helped me with my resume. They practiced interview questions with me and provided so much support and encouragement. And I've got to tell you, it's a really stressful process to apply for this kind of role. And just having and knowing that people had my back and were there to support me just made it so much easier, especially talking to people who had gone through it themselves, who could tell me what they would do differently if they could do it again. So that kind of hug around me as I was doing it really made a huge difference.
I wanted just to add, Sandra, when I was doing some recruiting, I remember actually working with the candidate, she was female, to make sure she was asking for enough. So it's one of those moments where I shouldn't necessarily be doing that, but I was like, we got to make sure that everybody steps up and understands what we ask and are there for each other. So I appreciate how stressful that whole process is. And I want to just add that something similar for me was I had a group of women that we called the She Group. And it was friends, colleagues, clients, where they were CEOs, and we get together and we kind of have a vulnerable time together. So instead of going necessarily to the standard golf tournaments and things that happen at conferences, we'd set up a special time in Sedona, or a special time in a location where we could really open up. And during those times, we had what we called the sharing of moments. So everybody would sit down and we'd share something that was on our mind, something that was vulnerable, that maybe we were vulnerable about, and we'd ask the group to give ideas. And for me, having a small company, it was at the time when I was wrestling with how to grow. Okay, how do you grow and want to do it on a cash basis, not do it by having investors? And so we bounced it around. Everybody had ideas. And the one idea that it ended up that really hit home for me and for the whole group was the idea that credit unions operate on an accrual basis. And if I established long-term contracts with people, we could ultimately bill up front and then they would accrue the expense. So that put us in a position where we could literally have cash on hand to go out and hire and grow and develop. And that all came because people were kind of selfless and willing to talk and help us build. And here we are, about 25 years later, and it's really worked in our dedication in the credit union space, because I think this industry, unlike any other that I've encountered, and I've worked in the Fortune 500, it has the ability to share and to be vulnerable and to help each other. So that was a very key moment, and I will forever be grateful.
Excellent. Thank you both. I'll pass it over to Heather.
Yes, thank you. Sandra and Susan, could you share with us how women can support other women in their organizations?
I'll go. I love that question. I think it's
I do
great.
too.
There's a really long list, I think, of what we can do for one another. I think, first of all, talk about people when they're not in the room. You know, oftentimes leaders get together and talk about things that need to be done or opportunities that are coming up. And so advocating in those spaces for the talented people, women we know are in our organizations is so important. I think joining, if you have employee resource groups that support women, join it. If you don't, start one. If your organization doesn't want to start one, start an informal group that is much like what Susan talked about. Get together, support one another. And this one I think is pretty simple, but I think it's really meaningful. When another woman does a great job and you see that, tell her. I was just with a friend who was at a credit union event with a big group of people organizing and running it, and was on the stage with them. And she came off and two women came up to her and said, "Oh, gosh, that was amazing. You were great." And my friend said, "Oh, I'll tell the team. We've all worked really hard." And the woman said to her, "No, we're not talking about them. We mean you. You did a great job. You were up there representing and handling difficult questions, and we're proud of you." And it was so meaningful. She just broke down crying right there. That's how much it meant to her. And I think sometimes we forget that we need that kind of support as well.
Call me emotional, but that one got me emotional. And I'm going to kind of take a perspective, like when you said talk about people when they're not in the room. I completely agree. It's like we have a tendency to not necessarily bring people forward. And I want to talk about it from the standpoint of don't talk about people when they're not in the room if we're not going to support. And I'm going to just challenge our group out there. And for those of you that know me, I'm always going to do this. But I don't know if women support each other enough. We have a built-in bias within our own psyche that says, potentially, I don't want to be noticed because I got the position because I was a woman. So there's a little bit of that we counteract the fact that we're not necessarily advancing women around us. We'll do it, but we're not as as forward as men are with it. Some of it may be our background, some of it may be cultural, some of it may be lack of confidence. But I really look at it as we have to show up on a regular basis, and we have to create those forums, as you indicated, that says, we have, like, even with the global women, as we evolved, we had the movement he for she, and people would come back to me and say, why are you diluting, what we're doing? And my point was that, first of all, men still dominate the boardroom and still dominate the CEO executive positions. So we need them to embrace and to come forward. But we also need our women, especially our CEOs and our women across the country, to reach and to advance and help people up. And so I challenge all of us to be a little bit more authentic with the fact that are we really standing up for women? Are we really saying, let's make sure that, and I know we're going to talk about this at the table, and be very intentional about setting up opportunities. And yes, we all still have to earn it. Yes, we have to come in there and knock it, over the fence. But in addition to that, I think we have to be there to be able to do it and have the confidence. And sometimes I think that when other women do well, we aren't as, hey, high five, as you indicated, as men are. So there's some built-in biases that we have to get over ourselves. And as we move up the ladder, don't look at it from the standpoint that female versus male, but do look at it that there's gaps. And we need to be pulling people up with us and ensuring that, somebody put here imposter syndrome. Absolutely. And it's even more than that from the standpoint that it's kind of intentional sometimes. So I don't know if you agree with that or if you have a thought on that, Sandra, but I just wanted to bring that to the forefront as well.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's an interesting time out there. And I think the more we make progress, I was doing some research today for everybody, but the fastest growing segment of advancing women right now is in technology. And we all have an opportunity, I think, in today's environment to increase our digital IQ. So I would say to all the women in here, if we're going to advance, take a look at where those opportunities are and where the advancement is coming from. And tech is going to be, a strong one. So whatever you can do to enhance your resume in that area. And I think we're going to see more CEOs with technical backgrounds than we've seen in the past.
Well, some really great, inspiring responses. And I personally admire you both so much. So glad to have both of you here. My question is, as a leader, how do you maintain awareness of who's at the table and who's missing?
So I really think as a leader, it is incumbent upon you to make sure you bring diverse voices, women's voices as well, to the table. And sometimes that's harder to do, like maybe in a CEO role, because you're not necessarily the one scheduling the meetings. So you have to engage, I believe, the whole team in setting the expectations about what you want to see at the table. And you've got to pay attention, right? It's got to be a priority, because if it's a priority for people in leadership, then it becomes a priority for the whole organization. But here's the thing I'll say, it does not end there. You can get those people at the table, in the room, but they need to be engaged. Because oftentimes when you're bringing folks in who have never been in the room before, they're shy. It's hard in that environment to really engage. So the leader needs to make sure to bring them into the conversation. And furthermore, when they get interrupted, which I tend to see a lot, where people in the room will interrupt the newbie because maybe it takes them a little longer to get their point across and whatnot. The leader has to step in at that point and say, hey, Bob, you didn't quite let Mary finish. So we're going to have you go second. We're going to let her finish her thought because we really want to hear what she has to say. The leader has to do that to make sure that it's a space where these folks who are new to the room learn that we do value their opinions and we do want them there. So I think that's an important factor in bringing folks in.
I absolutely love it. I was working with a board recently, and there's a woman, she's very bright, very strong, and she's more petite. And in the board meeting, people would overtalk her. And she and I had a little, kind of coaching session. And I said, make your presence known, even if your voice isn't. And that's sitting in, leaning in. And I gave her a little tip that said, tap your hand. Just that little tap that says, hey, I've got something to say, or you tap the hand of the person that interrupted you, or, it's almost like a physical reminder that, hey, I'm here, I'm in the space. And I would also say, I really appreciate what you said about bringing people into the room. And if we're going to champion them, also meet with them before they come in the room, get them prepared, give them a couple talking points, right? Because then we know that they have something to say, they've got a little bit there. So I just want to add, as I look to the future, I am now, and I don't know if anybody else is there, but if I go to a website, if I go to see a conference, anything, I'm a visual person. So I'm looking for diversity. I'm bringing up websites and I'm looking, if I'm going to be speaking or I'm going to be talking to an organization, or if I'm going to be working with their boards, I'm looking at that makeup. I'm looking for pictures. If I don't find pictures on the websites, I'm searching, I'm going to LinkedIn, because we're at this point, I want to be intentional with that. And I think we all should. when we do our underground planning, it's not only the people that are thought leaders, but it's also the people that represent a different voice. I call it diversity of thought. I really want people that represent, an area that we may not all understand. And we've been working internally to kind of, if you will, update the concept of DEI. And I think Zach's on this call, but many of you know Zach Christensen, but we've been brainstorming around the idea, and one of our other colleagues, Ryan, and we took DEI and we changed it to discipline, engagement, and investment. Now it's really important. The discipline to look at what we're doing and say, what does it represent? Okay. And then to ensure that we have the engagement, Sandra, you're absolutely right on. What kind of engagement? Let's plan for it. Let's prep people and then make an investment. It's an investment of time, it's an investment of resources, but it's the idea that people are literally invested in what the outcome is. And so I look at it from the standpoint that now it's become very, very much a part of who I am to take a look at the images. And I don't want to do it based upon, okay, I'm biased this way, I'm biased that way. I just want to see how people present themselves. Does that make sense?
Does. Beautiful.
I think we have time for one more question for our panelists. Leah, do you want to jump in there?
Yes, thank you. So considering all that we've discussed so far this afternoon, what would you both say we can do collectively to promote women into leadership positions in credit unions of all sizes, small and large, and everything in between?
I think I always like to start with the data to really understand in an organization where our problems lie. So is it at the supervisory level? So we're not getting women in at all at the beginning, or is it at the higher levels? Where do we really need to focus our efforts to make sure that we've got a nice pipeline moving through the organization? So when those promotional opportunities come up, you've got people kind of staged and ready to go. I think that's important. I think having really robust training programs, leadership development programs. So again, that whole pipeline is ready to keep on moving up through the organization. And if you don't work at an organization where that's the case, where there's that kind of opportunity, if there is, take advantage of it. But if there's not, there's so many things you can do on your own for your own development. And then I think the other thing is speak up, let people know that you are looking for more challenge, more responsibility, and that you feel you're ready. And really ask for honest feedback about what you can do to improve yourself, to raise your visibility in an organization. So the people who do the hiring and promoting notice you, that you're there. So you can do that. There's certain things within your control. And then if you're a leader in the organization, helping to facilitate those things where you have the span of control, I think it's incumbent on all of us. I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't gotten some great support and opportunities from other women. So help each other.
Sandra, you've been such a sport to go first. It's so lovely because I sit and take notes and I just want to build upon it. I go, oh, yeah, she's right. She's right. She's right. I was thinking when you said that about, show up and engage. And I was thinking about sometimes it's volunteering to the top as well. We don't always get visibility in our work environments, but if you volunteer and you're out there and people see your work ethic, there's opportunities there. I was thinking about Global Women's Leadership Network, and we talk about how we have localized, but we're also global. One thing that we have to keep in mind, and this is that strategic hat that I'd say to everybody, is that it's all about scale too. The reason that we want global women to continue to grow and to be a strong unifier, of women around the world is that it starts to show the world that credit unions matter. And I'm on the Worldwide Foundation board, and we know we have close to 400 million members worldwide. And we take that and we multiply it by the number of people that people touch, and we know we have over 1 billion. Now, folks, that's a number that people will pay attention to. And so I think Global Women's Leadership Network is the core of some of the efforts we want to do. So thank you all. I love to see that you asked the question, like, who are members, who have participated, because I think being a member also allows us to show that scale and to be able to say to the world, and frankly, within the United States, that we're not a small industry. We touch a lot of folks. And even when we kind of look in our own local areas, what you all have done, with Go West and unification there and being able to show what your scale is. I look at your social impact report and I'm just amazed. So I would just say to everybody that 15 years, it shows that we're in it, okay? So let's contribute our time, our treasuries, let's contribute and become members so we can sustain this and we can build from across the world. So that's my moment to say with Global Women's, but I'm 100% in agreement with Sandra and her leadership. And I'm so excited to see the female CEOs engaged. We have 2 of the largest credit unions and the largest credit in the world now run by a woman. And back to women supporting women, right? It's very important for us to say, hey, we actually have made a difference. When we started this, it was a very low percentage in the larger organizations. So congratulations, Sandra, on your journey and where you are. I'm just excited to have been able to be on the panel with you.
You as well, Susan. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Susan. Hearing from both of you was so insightful. We, again, appreciate you taking the time today to spend with us and to share your thoughts. And at this, we're going to break into our various breakout rooms. Each room has a leader, and we'll be discussing what we heard from Sandra and Susan and our own experiences, and then come back together to wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you so much again, Sandra and Susan, for your time. Before we do breakout rooms, Wendy, I wanted to see if we can do a big group picture. And then I also spotted a pink pocket square in addition to all the pink scarves. And I think we have Troy staying with Go West here. So Troy, I wanted to give you just a minute to add your voice as well. I think you might be.
Picture first.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So good to see so many of you on the screen. It's been awesome to see you at the Days at the Capitol. Wendy, I don't know how you have time to help facilitate this. It was so fun to see you in Olympia. I want to just take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for everyone for leaning into this. Such an important endeavor. And for those of you who don't know, I grew up in a household of amazing women. And as a farm kid in central Minnesota, it was so fun to see my mom, who frankly ran the farm, but also she did not have that necessarily profile of skill set, but she went on to become the chair of our school board. And I was so dang proud of her. And fast forward, my entire career almost has included solely working for women leaders, and have added such a beautiful perspective to my leadership day in and day out, and I learned so much just being on this call. I want to shout out to Latrice. I think you're still on this call. I think, help me. Are you on?
Yes, I am.
We had a chance to be together. Was that just yesterday in Colorado? 2 days ago? No, it was yesterday. It was yesterday. Latrice was absolutely amazing, helping testify in the first step of a long journey on a piece of credit union legislation. And Latrice, I think we all were shocked at the vigor the banks provided, but The way, Latrice, you told your story, told your credit union story, talked about the work that your credit union does in the communities. It just counterbalanced all the falsehoods that the banks were saying about credit unions. And it also, I think, illuminated for us the deep work we have yet to do. And I think this group on this call can help us do that. You see the work of your credit unions, the work within your employment base, amongst your membership in your communities through a lens that is so critically important. And Latrice and I were on a video earlier today on a PR call with all the PR professionals of credit unions in the Go West region. And the challenge I gave to the group is, how do we keep that constant storytelling of the positive stuff? Sue, you referenced it, the impact reports. We've got to tell our own story, and we've got to tell it through the lens of everybody on this call. And that's never ending. And some of the things that I heard today, who's at the table, the need to show up and living through the lens of the next generation of leaders and people around us. And so that's the challenge I'll leave this group, is to help us tell that story. You've got a unique perspective, and Latrice, please add to this, but we need to pack that hearing room with a whole lot of pink to counter the black dark suits of those bankers that were in the first four rows of that hearing room, because our credit union movement looks and feels a lot different. And I'll let Latrice add her voice here if you don't mind, and then I got one closing comment.
Thank you. I think the best representation or analogy would be at the end. We were all in different panels that went round robin, and we had three people on each of our panel whenever credit unions were allowed to speak. Their last panel, I believe, had 8 on it, and they all went up and they had to take turns, and it was just like they were just trying to show what their force was, but their message was the same thing over and over again. And we all went up with our stories of our credit unions and how we're in our communities and everything like that. And I think it's the same voice that we have whenever we're doing anything else. Is we're here, we are part of the community. We may not have that huge presence that you see at big banks, but we are here and we're not going away. And I think that I'm going to end on that, because that was, I think that's how it felt. They kind of just tried to overpower everything, and I don't think it worked. But
if I could, let me add one thing, Latrice. You're absolutely right, and Troy, I love the fact that you said we gotta overpower that stage with pink. There's a reason that this pink is pretty obnoxious, folks, and I had the tie on because when the men were up on that stage and they put the pink tie on, Troy, it was like, wow. And when you show up in pink, they can't ignore you. So thanks, everybody. I just really appreciated those comments.
The last piece I'll leave you is just a personal story to cap off my first personal story about my mother, and that is I am now the great proud uncle living through the lens of my 18-year-old niece, who got her first credit union job at my grandpa's credit union in Minnesota. Oh. And ironically, she got and Uncle Troy had nothing to do with it, but Haley became an MSR on the same day of the year that I started my job several decades ago. And she's going to be my guest at GAC. And so please come out. If you're there, please come and introduce yourself to Haley.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that, Troy. That's amazing. And thank you again, Sue and Sandra. We so appreciate the remarks and the inspiration that's going to take us into the afternoon's discussions, which we'll have, I think, about 20 minutes left for those breakout rooms. Leah, you're the photo master. How do we do this? How do we capture who's on the call today?
Well, we might do one